Good morning, everybody. It's good to see you all again. We woke up to an overcast autumn morning here for our live safari out of Djuma Private Game Reserve in the Sabi Sands. And I'm glad to let you know that there seems to be some action on the roads this morning and some action that we heard of around the Djuma camp. So thank you very much to Jody and to John Q, who sent through their updates. We had some hyena crossing over the dam towards the camp last night, and we also had a leopard that was seen around about 12 o'clock. Now, when we woke up this morning, I woke up in the dark, and I was hearing the hyena calling quite close to camp. Came out and saw the tracks on the road. There is talk of a leopard around the camp. We're going to be making our way into the area to go and follow up. I didn't hear the lions last night, which was funny. I was expecting them to wake me up with their roars periodically through the evening, but that doesn't mean that they're not around. And I think it would be worthwhile for us to go and have a look for them a bit later on as well. So what we're going to carry on doing is we're going to just circle around the area close to the dam, and we're going to see if we can pick up the cat that was seen last night. Right, let's carry on. For those of you who are new to our live safari experience, you're welcome to send questions through to me at #SafariLive on Twitter or via email at questions@WildEarthTV. And Nikki in Final Control will relay them through to me, and I'll try my best to answer those that I can. It was very rude of me. I forgot to introduce VM to everybody this morning. It's VM and I on safari. VM's operating the camera this morning, and he's a welcome second set of eyes. Early mornings are always a firm favorite of mine, because the bush almost seems fresh. It's definitely gives you the impression of a new beginning. And what we like to term bush newspaper, or the bush newspaper, always seems like it's a new delivery. The roads have the last night's tracks written all over them. The bush seems to be a little bit alive. Birds are not really feeding this time of the morning. They're always giving their territorial displays and calls. And the transition from nocturnal animals to diurnal animals is happening as we speak. So animals that are usually active at night time are now moving back towards their places of safety, and animals that are normally active in the daytime are starting to wake up and stretch and move around. It's always nice coming out just before sunrise. There's definitely a sense of peace during these transition periods, quite similar to sunset, but for me dawn is a lot better. This overcast weather that we're having is going to make for a nice day, I think. Keep animals out and active for a bit longer. Can you imagine being covered in all that fur? If it was a hot day, they don't move around for as long as what they would when it's overcast and a bit cooler like it is today. So leopard, being rather shy and elusive, tend to like the thicker bush areas. It's not to say that you won't find them in the open, You do find leopard crossing open areas both in the day and in the night, and walking on open roads, but they tend to like the thicker bush. And we have a drainage line on my left hand side, on this hand side, and living in these drainage lines are small antelope, bushbuck, nyala, enjoy it, duiker, and on the fringes you'd find steenbuck. You also have monkeys, all favorite foods of leopard. So what I'm doing is I'm following this drainage line to find out if the leopard that was seen around the dam last night comes out onto this road, or we can hear something that'll let us know that he's inside the drainage line. I'm reading the tracks on the road, identifying what was walking on the road or walking in the sand, trying to establish a timeline. So nothing comes out on this road. VM has just spotted some tracks on his side of the vehicle.
I can only see the toes. I know where the pads are.
And he spotted a fresh hyena track. Hyena are one of those animals that you really battle to track. They walk incredible distances at night time, and almost every road will have a hyena track of some sort on it. They patrol their home ranges, or they patrol their territories. Endurance athletes, they look for food, quite often scavenging off of lion and leopard, but it's not to say that they won't hunt themselves. So if he wasn't moving in this direction, which we're going to establish now, what we'll do is we'll circle the area where he was last seen. So we'll circle we call it a block. It's a block of bush that has roads around it. And we'll see, if we can, where he came out. Our seasons are changing from summer to winter at the moment. We're in our autumn period, and the Lowveld, which is where we are at the moment, it's an area in South Africa that's between two mountain ranges, the Lebombo mountain range in the east and the Drakensberg mountain range in the west. Subsided, or is lower than the two mountain ranges, so they call it the Lowveld or the low bush. And it's quite a nice place to spend winter. The temperatures very rarely get to below freezing. We'll hover around there in the evenings and then shoot right back up to 30 degrees centigrade, 20 to 30 degrees centigrade during the day. We're roughly about 80 to 100 kilometers from the Indian Ocean, and it does have an effect on the temperature here. But not a moderating effect, not as much as if you had to live actually on the coast, where the temperature of the water keeps the the variables at bay. Lots of birds calling this morning, it's fantastic. Now birds will use the early mornings to call because the air is relatively still. We have a slight breeze this morning, but not too much. Relatively still, and it's also not the optimum feeding time for a lot of birds. A lot of birds out here are insectivorous, and insects need the sun to warm them up before they start moving and make it easy for birds to see them. So they use the time to socialize, they use the time to call, establish and re-establish their territory. So we have no tracks coming out north of the block. So now what we're going to be doing is checking the western edge. So James in Kansas City has just asked, do I know what the temperature today is and the wind direction? Which is it's actually a good question, because a lot of animals only get moving at certain or between certain temperature ranges, and wind direction plays an important part in how predators move. So the temperature at the moment is about 12 to 15 degrees centigrade. I'm not too sure what that is in Fahrenheit, so I'll need some help there from our friends in countries that use Fahrenheit. And the wind direction is from east to west this morning. So at the moment I'm driving east and I have the wind gusting into my face. It's not too strong at the moment. It's not really even moving the trees, just the top of the trees. I know there's a scale for determining the strength of wind, ending at sort of hurricane force. We probably, and on the scale is 1 to 10, with 10 being hurricane force. We're probably at force 1 at the moment. So gentle breeze, just moving the trees, the tops of the trees. For those of you seeing my face for the first time, I'm Stefan, and I've just joined the Wild Earth team, taking out some safaris. This is my second safari. Although in a long career of taking safaris, this is my 16th year of doing game drives and hosting guests in the bush. For most of that time I've been working in this part of Africa, in South Africa, and on the eastern side of South Africa in the Kruger National Park. and the surrounding private game reserves, such as where we are right now. You're welcome to send some questions through to me if you like. Questions at WildEarthTV, or you can send them through to Twitter at #SafariLive. Nikki in Final Control will try and patch those that she can through to me. Stations with that lock, fingers cut. Would you mind if I make my 3, 2, 1, 2? Copy that. You'll notice the bush around me where we are at the moment is green. We're driving through a thicket, a Tamboti thicket. Tambotis are some of the rare trees that you find in this part of the world. They were quite highly prized for their wood, which is quite a fragrant, it has quite a fragrant odor to it. It's also known as the African cedar, and was used to make jewelry boxes at the turn of the century. And nowadays it's really tough to find big examples of Tambotis, although here I've managed to find a few. So the ones at Djuma have largely escaped the predations of man. And what is nice to see is that there's very healthy thickets of young trees. So I'm hoping that the seeds of 1 or 2 more giants are in the making here over the next couple of centuries. Trees themselves, when they get old, are hundreds of years old. Wood is really hard. They take a long time to grow, only a couple of centimeters a year. We've moved out of that thicket now. Still working the edge of the drainage line that runs into the dam, Williamtella Dam, where the camera is. We've now come up the one side and we're going down the other, keeping our eyes and ears open for any signs of that leopard that was seen a couple of hours ago. Leopard are predominantly nocturnal, although in my experience it comes down to a personality thing. Some leopard enjoy walking through the day, others enjoy walking through the night. But predominantly they'll do most of their activities under the cover of darkness, and by that I mean the marking of territory, most of their hunting. It doesn't look like it's going to rain today. The clouds are very high, and I can actually see some clear patches beginning to open. Go with your message. Some good news for us. Some of our teammates, we work in a web of rangers that come out of the game reserves in the area. We all help one another try and find animals for each other, basically. And while I mentioned to my colleagues that I was going to check the drainage line that we've been driving up and down, some other of them work downstream and they've managed to pick up what we're looking for. So we're going to be making our way through to a surprise for all of you. We're probably going to be there in a couple of minutes. We weren't too far off. So go warm up your coffees. Let's make our way through. Bird that's busy shouting at us on the way past. Right. So somewhere here, we've got to keep our eyes nice and open. Is what we've been looking for this morning. Stations with this mother being way off this house on the position. For those of you looking at the screen at the top left, keep an eye out for something. So there we have.
You guys keep me updated if he gets mobile.
So there we have what looks like a young male leopard on the top of a marula tree. He's got some branches in front of his face. I will move the vehicle in a little bit. Although leopard are supremely comfortable in trees, there is only a one-way up and one-way down, and I'm always a little bit cautious about approaching leopard in trees. I always like to let them tell me about what they're comfortable with. They definitely have moods the same as what we do. And I don't want to make him uncomfortable and make him jump down. Have a look at that fat belly. There's a reason why he's in the tree. It's lying just at the bottom of the base of his tail. That is the leftovers of dinner, it looks like. I'm going to go forward just a little bit. And let's see what he tells us. So as I'm still new to we can actually identify which leopard is which. Because they're territorial, you do see leopard and you can you see them often in an area. At least you see mature males and mature females and their offspring in an area often. You get to know who's who. And because they each have their own sort of distinct personality, you get to learn their habits. Would you repeat your message? So we've just had an update from Trisha, who says that this is definitely Kunyuma, which is Quarantine's brother. Kunyuma, he's a young male leopard, 2.5 years old. Him and his brother were born at the same time. Leopard have anywhere from they can have anywhere from 1 to 6 babies, but it's usually only one that's brought up to full adulthood, and in rare cases 2. I've never really seen a leopard bring up more than 2 cubs. It's really difficult for a single mom to find enough food to keep 2 cubs going and to stop them from being preyed upon by a hyena and lion in this reserve. But their mom managed to bring both 2 boys up into the world. They're on the cusp of full adulthood, and a supremely good effort from her. You'll notice those long whiskers on his face. They actually extend. If he extends those whiskers or erects those whiskers, they're as wide as his body, just a little bit wider than his body, and it aids them in hunting through thick bush. Those whiskers each go into a nerve. And hunting in the dark, hunting in thick bush, those whiskers aid him in slipping through gaps in the bush and enable leopard to really move about incredibly quietly. Big feet, and you notice on his pad there, he's got no visible claws. They have retractable claws, really sharp, really curved claws. There are 5 claws on the front foot, and that's what you're looking at the moment. You're looking at a front foot, and there are 4 claws on the back foot. Although only 4 toes really register in the sand, the 5th toe is it's off the ground on the wrist and is called a dew claw. Let's try and move around to the other side of the tree. We'll give him another minute or two. Let's see what he's going to do. I don't want to move too often. We'll give it. Go right ahead. Bob on our Twitter has just asked me what Kunyuma has killed. That's a good question, Bob. What we're looking at the base of his tail there is part of the digestive tract of a small animal. Now, leopard are known to take kills as much as 100 kilograms of weight into trees. I've found baby buffalo in trees, and I've heard of reports of even giraffe calves that have been pulled into trees by leopard. I've never seen something that big in a tree before. From this angle, it's impossible to tell what he killed, but I think what I'm going to do is move around to the other side of the tree, because it looks like a more comfortable position for him, and I think that once he relaxes with our presence like he is at the moment, our view is going to be better from that side. And maybe what we can do is we'll have a better view when we get there. So I'm going to move our vehicle, and hopefully we can ID what he's killed once I have. So once again, what I'm going to do is just let him dictate to me what he's comfortable with. We're in his world at the moment, and therefore it's his choice to let us know what he's comfortable with today. So I'm going to be watching him as I change direction here, looking for anything that tells me that he's not happy. And at the moment his head. Leopard have a way of draping themselves over a branch that makes the softest bed we have look like sleeping on a bed of rocks. I was able to identify what he had for dinner, and it looks like a steenbok. A steenbok is a small antelope, one of the dwarf antelope that we found out here. And there you can see I was able to identify it from the white belly and white forelegs and that light tawny colored skin that you can see in the picture. He started to eat at the hindquarters, which is not uncommon for a leopard. They very often start at the back or in the belly cavity of an antelope, and that's because the most nutritious food is inside the antelope, the liver and the hindquarters, and it's also where leopard get a lot of their moisture from. They will drink when water is available, as last night's camera shot at the dam proved, but they don't necessarily need water. They get a lot of their water from the food that they eat, and are able to survive because of that into deserts. Leopard are one of the most widespread of all the cat species. You find them, or used to find them, before overpopulation and habitat destruction caused their populations to be fragmented. But there are historical records of leopard from the tip of Cape Town all the way to the eastern shores of Asia. Deserts all the way through to rainforests, you find leopard from 100 meters above sea level all the way to 1,200 meters above sea level. Have a look at that. Beautiful. Now, because the competition for food out in an area like this is relatively high, I mean, you've got lion, you've got hyena, you've got leopard of varying sizes. They're all vying for the same food, basically. He needs to be able to safeguard that food. And leopard have evolved this unique amongst the cats ability to larder food in trees. So he avoids lion and, well, the majority of lion and hyena stealing his kills by treeing. It's called treeing his kill. Now, almost all leopard are able to tree their kills. However, in my experience, I've seen some leopard who never tree kills and others who tree kills all the time. Kunyuma has got he definitely enjoys treeing his kills, while his brother Quarantine doesn't, as far as I know. To enable them to climb trees, and the pads on their feet are also quite rough, which gives them the ability to almost stick to the bark of a tree. Have a look at what he's doing there. Obviously wants some more food, or he just wants to reposition the kill a little bit. He's just making sure that it's not going to fall out of the tree. Have a look at that balance. A leopard are much more agile in trees than what lion are. Lion are big and cumbersome, and a leopard like him will probably, if lion had to corner him in this tree, he'd probably be able to escape them by moving into the thinnest branches of the tree. I've seen leopard on the outskirts, on the fringes of a tree. With lions around, they soon lose interest and move on. Long tongue, very similar to a house cat's. A leopard's tongue is covered in spiny projections, incredibly rough, and they're able to pluck and lick the hair off their prey. They tend to take a lot of time to pluck hair off their prey. They lick the hair off and they spit the hair out. Them and caracal have a similar behavioral trait, and they don't enjoy eating things with hair. I like to put it down to their superior intelligence. I also wouldn't like mouthfuls of hair. Beautiful view of those massive canines. Used to grip prey and to administer the strangling bite that cats are so famous for, the bite around the base of the skull or around the throat, which very quickly dispatches prey. Those eyes. I've always wondered at the intelligence behind those eyes. Bigger than a lion's brain and more well developed on the frontal lobe, which is where intelligence lies. So have a so you will notice him pulling at that carcass. He was busy plucking some fur. Welcome. Looks like he's coming down. So Blair in Canada have asked me how high he has his kill, and we'll be able to see now, give it some perspective. He probably has it, Blair, telling us he's not too comfortable. It's okay, my boy. We're not here to hurt you, we're just here to look at you. So that's a typical reaction some leopard have to a camera lens or binoculars, or in fact anybody just making eye contact with them. It's just leopard are very elusive, and they don't enjoy being exposed, and he's now on a tree trunk, exposed. Now you can have a look at how high his kill was. We'll zoom out a little bit more, and you can see that it's in the top branches of this tree, easily 3.5, probably 4 meters off of the ground, 4.5 meters, which is roughly 20 to 25 feet off of the ground. Marulas make for fantastic larders for leopard. This is a marula tree. Their bark is relatively soft, and their branches are parallel to the ground, which make for nice beds. Now he's climbed out of the trees. He's just in the base of the tree. Quite often when leopard are full, they won't sleep for long periods in a tree. They will feed and then come down. They are exposed in the tree. Their kills are safe in the tree, but if he were to be cornered by some lion in the top of a tree, it would be potentially disastrous. But being on the ground, he gives himself an escape route. And most lion, upon realizing that he was not in the tree but his kill is, they would opt for trying to get his kill and breakfast rather than chasing him through the bush. So it is safer for them on the ground. You'll notice that beautiful coloration, disruptive camouflage. With the help of a telephoto lens, we were able to see him in the grass, but you can imagine in a pitch darkness with a slight breeze blowing, that steenbok didn't stand a chance. His ear, you'll notice, is banded black and white. You'll also see that his eyes are ringed in white. Communicate with one another. They obviously don't have a verbal language, and the way they communicate with each other is through gestures and tiny movements and placements, specific placements of their ears, their lips, their nose. You saw him talking to us as he came down the tree, just letting us know that he didn't appreciate us filming him descending the tree. Coming back to the camouflage again, very similar to military camouflage, which is designed to break up the profile. You can see that his coat, the dots and the rosettes that he has on his coat, is there to break up his profile, which is actually how you identify animals. So his coat is designed specifically to break up his profile, and have a look at that shot. You can hardly distinguish his head from his belly, from his neck. That was just a beautiful shot of how his camouflage helps that to happen. Almost as good, just an amorphous mass there. You can hardly tell what is neck and chin. Welcome, go right ahead. Anne on Twitter has just asked me if, and welcome Anne, welcome to the show. Anne has just asked me if Kunyuma or Quarantine, his brother, will be any threat to his mom's new cub when she finally has a baby again. At 2.5 years, there's every expectation, at him being 2.5 years old, there's every expectation that his mother is either pregnant at the moment or wanting to become pregnant. Her body will be telling her it's around about time again. And it's quite a difficult question, that, because it's all dependent on the density of leopard in any particular area. These two boys have they haven't set up a territory. They're not actively marking territories. They're still within their mother or their natal territory, their mother's territory where they were born. And they starting to reach sexual maturity. They themselves will not be a threat to their mother's new cub. It's not uncommon for generations or successive generations of leopard to be within a similar area. And live together. It depends on how successful their mothers are at breeding. But he won't necessarily show any aggression to the new cub. They don't live mutually exclusive from one another. I would go so far as to presume that leopard know exactly where each other are pretty much all of the time. And with their highly developed sense of smell and their mother being the dominant female around this area, she will be marking her territory, and they will be able to pick up on any signs that she's leaving behind. They'll definitely know when she has a new cub. So no, they don't pose any threat to her new babies. Unfortunately, the mortality rate amongst leopard and lion is quite high. Leopard, lion and hyena, in actual fact. In some areas of Africa, up to 80% of all the cubs that are born die. In this particular area, it's not that high, although a lot of cubs don't make it through to adulthood for a variety of reasons. In this area, lion and hyena and leopard, they unfortunately kill one another's cubs quite regularly. In other areas, factors like starvation and temperature exposure, extremes in temperature will kill babies. Disease quite often takes young cubs. That's all Mother Nature's way of maintaining an equilibrium, a balance. So I have a relatively fast digestive system. At the moment, he's belly full of meat, which he can bolt meat down. Roughly 20% of his 20% of his body weight he can actually swallow in a sitting. So he's definitely got a kilogram or two of meat in his belly. Looking at what's left of that steenbok, I'd say he's probably got upwards of 5 kilograms, 5 to 10 kilograms of meat in his belly. He will digest that meat in a couple of hours, and it'll give him energy probably for 3 to 5 days before he really starts needing to hunt again. In my time out here in Djuma, I've seen him take 3 kills. Although the average for the entire Kruger National Park is 1 kill larger than 10 kilograms for every 12 days, which doesn't sound like a lot. Welcome and good morning from Djuma Private Game Reserve in the Sabi Sands. We're watching a young male leopard who's lying at the base of a tree. He has a kill in. He's killed a steenbuck. It looks like he killed it fairly early last night because he's relatively full. He's lying up at the base of the tree having a rest. There's his kill. It'll probably last him the rest of the morning. I have no doubt that he'll move away from this area by this evening. It's a nice cool day. He's not going to have too much problems dealing with the heat of the day. And he's going to go through bouts of eating, resting, eating, resting, eating. He may go down and have a drink of water. It is available. Vuyatela Dam is within sight of where we are right now. And come back and finish his meal off. You're welcome. Mel in California has just asked or remarked on the fact that when Kunyuma came down the tree, he used his tail. And is this common? And the answer to that question, Mel, is absolutely. Leopard tails are about 2/3 the length of their body. They're round, they're quite weighty, and is used as a counterbalance. When he's running through the bush, they swing their tails around quite widely, and their tail. Leopard, it's just accentuated. Taken one further is their cousins, the cheetah, who have a round tail that is weighted at one end, and they also use their tail to great effect while they're maneuvering at speed. Now, a weighted tail wouldn't help a leopard because it would just be cumbersome in their particular habitat. But a round, cylindrical, heavy tail, it's quite heavy at the base, quite wide. We're looking at probably this wide at the base and that round, which is significant, tapering to about that wide at the end. It is covered in fur. Most of it is actually just bone. His spine is extended into his tail and covered by flesh, and then hair, skin and fur after that. And there's a great indication their mood as well. Not only does it help them balance and maneuver at speed when they're running around and climbing in trees, but it's also, when you bump into them, a good way of judging their mood. They flick and dart their tails around. He's having a snooze. There's a fairly good chance that we're going to be able to find him here again in a bit. I think what we're going to do is let's carry on with. We're lucky enough to still find him over here if we don't find anything else. So, weer maar nou. Adds a chance to view him, giving him a chance to rest without us making a big noise around him, and we'll probably come back to him a bit later. For now, let's carry on with the game drive. Goodbye, boy. Once again, as I'm reversing out of the sighting, I'm just watching him, letting him tell us how relaxed he is. I reversed out of this particular area I was in with him without him even so much as looking at us. So he's a very relaxed cat at the moment, which is good. And it's one of the ways that out here we maintain our relationships, our good relationships with these animals. We don't like to bother them, if at all possible. Some animals can develop bad habits, chasing vehicles, chasing people. They're by no means domesticated. This is a completely wild area and has been a completely wild area forever. But because we all live together, we all respect one another. Stations, I'm leaving the sighting of the one my daughter Ingwe. So at the base of the military, static, no one in the sighting, so open lock. So look what we found within sight of the kill. You can see the kill in the tree actually in the top right hand corner. Lying here in the sand is a hyena. So this hyena is being quite sneaky in that makes the of dropping his kill out of the tree, and he will then run up and snatch it. So this is a spotted hyena. They very, very often tail leopard and snatch their kills. They're just big bullies, or they can be big bullies at least anyway. They weigh more than what leopard do generally, and it's quite easy for them to snatch kills. Might be the reason that Kunyuma enjoys treeing his kills as much as what he does. It very quickly takes the kill out of reach of hyena. They can't climb trees, they don't have retractable claws. And you'll notice that this hyena is lying in a depression, a sand depression. It's nice and cool. Gives him a bit of a raised area to act as a pillow. Welcome. So this hyena will be part of a clan, and that clan will live in this particular area. They have there's home ranges and there are territories. Now the difference between a home range and a territory is, a home range is the area that an animal will walk in or live in and be seen in, and a territory is the area an animal will defend. Now hyena live in huge territories and home ranges. Because there's so many of them, usually in a clan, they can defend a much larger area. Now this hyena can afford to lie up and tail this leopard, because it's just an easy meal if Kunyuma does make a mistake and he's not using any energy at the moment to run around catching his own food. So for them, or for him at least, works out quite well. Just repeat your message. I'm just going to reverse a little bit so that we can have a look at her face, see if we can get a better shot. There we go. Through the grass there. I'm sorry, that's about the best that we can do for now. She's lying up in a thicket of monkey oranges, which is quite dense. Now coming back to hyena and their territories, it's not uncommon for hyena, as we were mentioning earlier this morning, on this particular reserve, it's not uncommon to find hyena track on almost every road and fresh sign of them on almost every road on the reserve in the mornings. They can walk anywhere up to 30 kilometers in an evening and have been known to make foraging journeys of up to 400 kilometers away from den sites on their foraging, on their forays. Territory size and home ranges vary with food depending on where hyena are found. In the drier parts of the country where game is scarce, territories are massive. And by massive, I'm saying around 2,000 square kilometers. Whereas here in the Kruger National Park, where the density of prey is around about 10 animals per hectare, you have territory and home ranges roughly 500 square kilometers. So 500 square kilometers is very close on about 300 square miles, all for it. This particular clan of hyena, it's a massive area. Yeah. I think we're going to leave her or him to lie up in the sand. We're going to make a loop through the reserve and see what else we can find, and possibly come back and have a look at this a little bit later if we don't find too much else around today. The two of them are lying about 100 meters apart from one another, just less than 100 meters apart from one another, probably knowing full well that each other's there. The hyena would have absolutely heard Kunyuma jump down from the tree, and I have no doubt that with the elevated position Kunyuma was in, he would have been able to see the approach of the hyena and even possibly where he lay or she lay down. So they're fully aware of one another, and because they both live in the same area and have grown up in the same area, you probably find that they know one another as well. Much the same as what you'd know a neighbor in your street or in your block on site. These animals all know one another, especially the animals with territory. The wind has actually died down from this morning, funnily enough. Usually wind picks up as the day progresses, but today the wind has died down to almost non-existent. The breeze that was ruffling the treetops is now very still. It's actually a beautiful day. It's very, very quiet. Philly in Florida, welcome to the show. Good morning. We'd like to know if there's been any elephant seen on the reserve today. There's been no elephant seen on the reserve today, or yet I should say. It doesn't mean that they're not there. I'm hoping to actually go and see some elephants at the moment, so we're looking for some elephant sign ourselves. So I'm going to be starting at the thicker bush areas, and we're going to be working our way outwards from the dams in the area and seeing if we can find some elephant. I've been wanting to see a baby elephant for a few days now, so I'd also like to see some elephants. Much like our hyena, that we saw just now, you can wander up to 30 kilometers in an evening. Elephants are also great wanderers. It's not uncommon for them in the drier parts of the country to walk up to 50 kilometers in a day. And I've known elephants in the Kruger National Park to walk round trips of 160 kilometers or 100 miles in 2 days. Disappearing for 2 days and then coming back again. Who knows what they walk these distances for? The Kruger National Park has a lot of permanent rivers, and on top of that there are quite a few permanent watering holes as well. They do get smaller and taste a lot grimmer as the season dries up. And elephants are well known for enjoying fresh water whenever they can find it, going so far as to dig their own wells in riverbeds rather than drink from stagnating pools. As we're driving along, you're welcome to send me some questions. You can going to be crossing a small drainage line. This drainage line runs through the center of Djuma and is part of the lifeblood of this particular reserve. The reason for that is that even though there's no flowing water in it, there is definitely water underground in a river, and it supports quite a large diversity of trees, which obviously are good forage for animals, which in turn get preyed on by other animals. And in the Sabi Sand Game Reserve, these dry riverbeds are the focal point for a lot of animals through the dry season. We're lucky enough to have this very productive drainage line going straight through the middle of Djuma. Notice me swatting the flies as the day progresses and they start warming up. They get increasingly more active. That's a calf. Quite difficult to sex from this angle. It's a female calf. And notice those pink ears with the reddish stripes in the middle, diagnostic, that white chevron, the stripes on the body and the crest. They belong to a group of antelope called the Tragelaphus antelope, or the spiral horned antelope. nyala, which are quite common on the reserve. You may have seen it in previous safaris. Bushbuck, kudu, bongo, sitatunga, mountain nyala, all part of this group of spiral-horned antelope. The males have these beautiful corkscrew horns of a variety of different shapes and sizes. Kudu have one of the most impressive. Females don't have horns. Look at that, beautiful. They're browsers, and she's busy browsing on the leaves of a particularly nutritious tree, a buffalo thorn from the genus Ziziphus. And being ruminants, she is needing to eat high protein leaves, very good quality leaves. Kudu in fact eat about 150 different species of tree. The only animals in the bush that actually eat a more diverse diet than what she does are the elephant and the rhinoceros. So they're able to utilize a wide variety of trees. The attending red-billed oxpecker, sitting on her rump, preening himself or cleaning himself. The oxpecker and the kudu have a relationship with one another. It's a symbiosis. It's a symbiosis called mutualism, type of symbiosis called mutualism. The kudu benefits by having the very wide awake oxpecker on her rump that'll give her warning if she spots any predators, and the bird benefits from having a meal. The kudu is a large animal and attracts a lot of parasites in the forms of ticks, and where both animals benefit from the relationship. That was beautiful. So it was her and her calf, but kudu females hang around in herds together, and I have no doubt that there's some other members of the herd around. I'm just going to go around the bush and see what we can see. I do notice in the tree above my head, we've got a vulture. You'll notice in the center, top center of the screen at the moment, the humped-backed form of a white-backed vulture. Quite a common vulture in this area. Not that vultures are common. Poisoning and of carcasses by farmers in an effort to control jackal numbers has seriously diminished vultures. They're on the threatened species list, so by no means a common bird, but this particular vulture species is seen quite often in the bush. It's not to say that there's a kill around here. A vulture this time of the day, with the overcast cool weather we're having, sitting in a tree is exactly where I'd expect to find vultures. They wait for the day to heat up, for thermals to start being generated, and then they will, on their very wide wings, catch the thermals and soar across the reserves, looking for any evidence of kills that they can go and scavenge. Vultures don't kill their own food. They scavenge off of other predators, and as soon as the day heats up, this vulture will get going. Probably today around about 10-11 o'clock I'd expect them to start flying around, unless the cloud cover breaks and the sun comes through. Now if there were more vultures in the tree, or if we saw a diversity of scavengers, so more species of vultures, or a collection of white-backed vultures, or some eagles that typically like to scavenge, Basilia and tawny eagle like to scavenge, that would give us an indication that there was a kill in the area. But one white-backed vulture sitting in a tree, this time of the day, waiting for the sun to heat up a thermal, I very much doubt that there's a kill in the area. See if we can get this guy. And there we have a blue-eared starling, a blue-eared glossy starling. Very, very impressive. He's in attendance with his females. He's wanting to know if there's any chance that he can sire the next generation. A beautiful starling. So that glossiness comes from a transparent layer of keratin that's coating their feathers, which refract light. The sunshine there. VM, if you wouldn't mind going back to that guy, have a look at that. Wow. Beautiful example of a male kudu. Have a look at that impressive beard, a crest of hair along his back. They're able to erect that hair and make himself in profile look big. And with the markings on it, I'm just going to go around the bush quickly and see if we can get into a nice view to see him again.
Lion print.
Yes.
Older.
It's older. So this kudu at the moment is doing his disappearing trick again, hiding behind those bushes. There he comes. You'll be able to see him ghosting through the bush there. Just catch the movement. He's playing hard to get. You can just see his nose in the bottom right hand corner. And the glimpse of a horn. You'd never think that there was a 500-pound animal that's busy hiding in the bushes over there. 50 meters away from the car. Those stripes on his coat and that grey body giving him the camouflage that he needs to blend into the bush and hide away. See, very effective camouflage there. because they're browsers, you can expect them to be in bushy areas like this, and that grey color that he has is to blend into background, and the stripes, the white stripes that you can just see through the underbrush there, are there to give that disruptive breakup, like shafts of sunlight coming through a canopy of trees, making him all but invisible. I mean, lovely morning. Out some lion tracks on the floor next to us while I was busy looking at the kudu, and I'm going to see if we can see that. See if VM can go up a little bit, VM. There we go. It's really tough to see, but that's a lion track. See if we can find another one. They're old lion tracks, I would say, from yesterday. They're not fresh enough to follow at the moment. I'd gather it was from the male lion that we saw yesterday morning in attendance with that male and female. One of them are Timber brothers. Go right ahead. Hello Jeffrey in the UK. Thanks for sending your question through to me about oxpeckers and their preference for animals and preference for tick species. Oxpeckers definitely do have a preference for the animals that they like to sit on. For instance, you don't see oxpeckers sitting on elephants, but you do see oxpeckers sitting on buffalo and rhinoceros. And that's because the animals that carry the higher tick loads are the ones preferred by the oxpeckers, or animals that like to live in dense herds, for instance like impala. So absolutely, giraffe, rhino, buffalo, kudu, impala, zebra, wildebeest are probably the most common of the animals, as far as I can think at the moment, are probably the most common animals that oxpeckers like to sit on. You get two different types of oxpeckers in this area. You get the red-billed oxpecker. By far the most common of the oxpeckers was the one that we just watched on the kudu. And then you get a yellow-billed oxpecker as well. They were exterminated from this area about 60 years ago, unfortunately, with the use of insecticide in cattle farms neighboring these reserves. And very quickly they were exterminated because the birds ate the ticks that were poisoned by the insecticide and were exterminated before we really even realized what we were doing 60 years ago. As you can imagine, ecology and the study of the environment wasn't a natural science as common as what it is today. People did things in those days ignorantly that we're even feeling their repercussions today from. They were reintroduced into this area about, correct me if I'm wrong please, there's lots of reference material available on the the reason why the red-billed oxpecker is more common is because the red-billed oxpecker substitutes the ticks that it eats with blood and with keeping wounds open on animals. Both species do eat blood, but the red-billed oxpecker definitely eats more blood than what the yellow-billed oxpecker does, and so it wasn't as badly affected by the use of this particular pesticide. Red-billed oxpecker are our friends out here as much as what they give our presence away when we walking around in the bush. They also help us to find animals. They've got a very distinctive call, and very often we like we enjoy sightings because of oxpeckers that have helped us to relocate animals. Know the message. So Deanne from Washington, welcome to the show, asked if there was a difference between ticks and fleas. Absolutely, there's a very big difference between ticks and fleas. They're both parasites that live on animals. Ticks are flattened dorsoventrally, so they flattened pancakes. Fleas are flattened laterally, is the correct word to use. They flatten sideways and they jump. Ticks crawl around, fleas jump around. The animals out here have both, but by far the more numerous, at least visually, are ticks. They are big and small, whereas fleas are tiny little things. We don't really see them. They're tough to see even with binoculars. But thank you for your question. Sun is just starting to peer out of the clouds at the moment. It's going to be time for me to get a hat out soon, not only to protect myself from getting sunburned, but also to protect your eyes from the reflection off of my head. So